as long as it's packaged properly.
So you never like had a letter stick to a machine, as far as you know?
If it's packaged properly, it should not stick to a machine. This also gets into, I mean, we've sent some like baseball-sized neodymium magnets, and I mean, like if you pick this up and move it across the room, you need to think before you walk, because they'll do things like slam your hand into a file cabinet and break the bones in it. And we have sent this kind of stuff through the mail, but yeah, properly packaged, it's safe to do. But yeah, be careful about the safety. Go for it.
You mentioned mailing a phone with GPS receiver and stuff like that in it. Is there, I mean, you could probably get in trouble for that if it's on. I mean, you also mentioned having it turn off while it's on the phone. What if you mailed a phone that was on, like airmail?
I don't know any rules against that. If it goes airmail, that's a good question.
I mean, it's you're still not allowed to have radio transmitter on.
Well,
flights, right?
the FAA regulation says that passengers are not allowed to.
Maybe the cargo.
So I don't know how cargo would actually work with that.
I was
but
thinking
yeah,
that
it's
for the bag cam thing too, but I never asked him.
Yeah,
I don't know if you knew.
It's a question. I mean, there's all kinds of. And I can get into this is a whole other separate talk about the cell phones and airplanes. I am a pilot, and I can talk a lot about what the hazards are. And the hazards aren't so much that one cell phone's going to mess things up. It's when you have 150 of them. And actually, the pilot can hear that GPS chatter that you hear in your computer speakers, and we hear a lot of it. So that's probably the most of the interference that we would receive. But pilots are up there in the front too, calling their wife, "Yeah, I'm on approach. I'll be home in time for dinner or whatever." And you hear it on the ATC frequencies all the time. So it's not going to cause a plane to crash. But yeah, I would like to find some way to.
If they were able to detect it somehow, you might be able to get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't really know. That's one of the things we have to check out before we do it.
Right.
So thanks for your comment.
Right.
On his note, I've heard that was more due to keeping people's attention during the takeoff and landing procedures.
But if that were the case, you should be able to talk the rest of the flight. Cell phone carriers also don't like the fact that you're a 6-mile high antenna and you start connecting to multiple towers. That's why they haven't really thrown up a big hissy fit about it.
Well, that's your point, and the track phone may be more cost effective, but have you thought about sending photo loggers that photographers use to track their pictures, and it basically keeps a timestamp and the current location?
It doesn't tell me where my package is when it's lost, and that's what we're looking to do.
Okay.
I have several customers who, I mean, part of this is actually for work. I have customers who send gold through the mail. A lot of people don't know the Hope Diamond was actually sent registered mail to the Smithsonian. The post office is very proud of that. And the registered mail service actually has a lower loss rate than any other courier service in the nation. So if you're getting commercial insurance, it's actually cheaper. But yeah, their website only updates like once every 48 hours or something like that. And we'd like more real-time tracking than that.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of what we're into. But yeah, thanks. Go for it.
Have you tried deforming flat rate mail envelopes with various shapes inside the envelope? Also, with respect to the question of whether a stress might be imposed on the glued seam, depending on what you put inside.
Okay. Yes, we have. We filled one bursting to the seams with concrete rebar. And the rules are, as long as it can stay closed under its own glue, as it was designed by the post office, it's legal to go. So I think we got it. Yeah. Well, actually, so you're not supposed to use tape on it, although most of the time they'll let that fly. Somebody asked about hot glue. Actually, the envelopes have hot glue in them, and you can use that to heat seal as well. There's already a strip there. You just iron it and go. But yeah, for short distances it works. For longer distances, the chipboard that it's made out of can't really handle that much weight. We've put balloons in them, and those go pretty good and don't cause much structural damage. We've also put rare earth materials like tungsten in them that don't deform it a lot, but take it up to the 73-pound maximum weight limit for the Postal Union. And you had a second question?
No, but those experiments you did also with not just flat rate parcels, but flat rate envelopes.
Yes. Yeah, the cardboard flat rate envelope.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we used for the rebar, not the plastic milk jug recycled ones. Next question.
Yeah, you were talking about having an address continually update like daily. If you just use like a piece of like adding machine roll or like receipt printer paper, and you just had something in there that would like wind it every.
Okay, so need like.
And then just have a clear window, and it would just
Yeah.
roll the address.
I don't know a lot about like building stuff from like scrap and electronics, but we've thought about doing that with Lego Mindstorms. I figured it'd be pretty simple to tell it, turn on, step so many steps forward. So yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, something I've just learned recently, if you live in a small town, there's a big city near you, your local mail, say you're mailing something yourself, will get routed to the big city, then sent back to you. If you actually say to the person at the counter, keep in office, they will not send it out to the main, I guess, where they route the mail. They'll keep it in the local, so you cut a day or two off for delivery. Yes,
you can. There's a lot of requests like that you can make. For example, stamp collectors like their mail to be stamped a specific way, and that's part of why the apply it yourself cancellation is interesting. A lot of them just want it to be nicked, just the minimum amount possible, and you can do that. Also, if you have something fragile, you can ask them to hand cancel it, and it's usually not a problem.
Last thing, I was in an office where there were just like 2 people working there, and I asked them about this, and said, we'll get the postmaster for you. And out of the back room came a little old guy, and for the local post office, he was called the postmaster.
Yes. Some post offices also have a separate mail drop for in-town mail.
Yeah, sure.
Which, does the same thing, saves gas, saves you time. Go for it.
I'd like to thank you for your talk. It was very interesting. I was wondering if anybody, through perhaps the use of helium, has tried sending something that's lighter than air.
Yes, we've looked into that, and the problem is that there's nothing that we've found that is light enough to contain the helium. Everything is just too fragile, or it exceeds the relatively small sizes. We've looked at like a Mylar balloon or something like that. One of the things to keep in mind, I mean, if sometimes you get some static when you take stuff up to the counter and they go, well, we're not really sure you have to do it. You can mail this, or you're going to have to put that in a box. If it's under 13 ounces, you can just drop it off and not talk to anybody. So, it might be possible with some sort of strengthened Teflon or Mylar to build a balloon, but I haven't found anything that's readily accessible to me yet. So,
Thank you.
If you come up with some ideas on how to do it, I'd love to know, because we'd love
Thank
to
you.
send a negative weight package. Go for it.
I didn't see it on your list of URLs, but you may know it. It's a browser for zip codes, semaphorcorp.com.
Yes.
It's seemingly unique because you can put in an address and see not only you get the barcode and the full zip +4 +2, but it will also let you browse the neighborhood and see other addresses and what the valid addresses are for several, all up and down the block, all up and down the street.
You can do that on the post office's website too, just by putting the street address in and not specifying an address. And that's how I got the ranges. That was actually a screen capture from the post office.
It's an interesting, but it's semaphorcorp.com, and
yes.
I guess they're in the business of selling data, but there's also a free lookup. And
yes.
It's interesting.
Yes, it's a neat reference. Thanks for mentioning it.
Two quick questions. How much would you say you invest in postage in a year?
In a year, maybe $250. And most of that's because we're sending multiple copies of the same stuff to lots of people, so we get a larger sample space. It's by no means statistically significant sample space, but it's greater than 1.
And then have you tested the structural intensity, or how much a package is jostled, like a very thin strip of Legos, and seeing if they break up into all pieces?
We could put an accelerometer in a package. That would measure that. Let's see, what else could we do? There was one person who made a ball of ink pens pointed out, and it was an art project to see how much it would get scrambled up inside the box, and that was kind of interesting. We haven't done much else with that, although we have been doing some experimentation in materials packaging. We're currently sending uncooked eggs through the mail. We drill a small burr hole in one end and then punch the other end, and we use compressed air to blow the actual egg stuff out, so it's not going to spoil or turn rancid or anything like that. It also makes the egg just the shell, so it's now weaker because it has no internal structure. But the best thing we found is to use a milk crate as an exoskeleton on our box. And we've thrown them off of parking decks, we've drop kicked them. We haven't thrown one out of an airplane yet, but that's coming. But properly packaged, the G-forces in the mail are negligible.
Thanks.
So, one other thought on that. You can send certain types of live animals to the mail.
So I heard a rumor a while back that at MIT's Draper Labs, when they were developing missile guidance systems, they in fact tried mailing gyroscopes to themselves to see if the dead reckoning stayed accurate. And of course, being gyroscopes, they would precess. So the postman would have it sort of balancing in his hands, and when it got onto the mail handling equipment, it might sometimes flip itself on a ramp.
That's interesting. That goes along with the offset centers of gravity. I'd be interested in learning more about that, particularly how they powered it. Because gyroscopes suck a lot of power.
Yeah, I mean, less so if you vacuum pack them, and of course they had military grade equipment. But I've always been dubious as to whether this was true, so I was sort of wondering if you'd ever heard about it.
I think I know where I can get some electrically. I'm a pilot, so I can get vacuum gyros, no problem. But I think I know somebody I can borrow a set of electrical gyros from to try that with. So we'll have to give that a shot. Cool. So subscribe to the RSS feed, and maybe you'll see a posting.
Really quick question. I just want to know, do you know what happens to all those Santa letters people send? Like, do they go in the trash or do they get returned to
No,
sender?
it's a charity thing that postal employees do out of the goodness of their heart. They're routed to whatever city the child is at, and there's volunteer groups that try to answer as many of them as possible. A lot of them just get a written response back if that's kind of what they're looking for, if it's just encouragement or best wishes. But yeah, for poor kids and stuff, they try to fill wishes. And it's postal employees who do that off the clock for free. So yeah, they get handled. So good question.
Yeah, you said that one time you mailed a camera through the mail?
Yes.
I think, okay, have you ever thought of mailing a phone and seeing if you could have a conversation with someone who was processing the mail?
That is a nice idea. Battery life is an issue and talk time is an issue, except that you can get the, I guess it's T-Mobile who has the free unlimited calls to 5 people.
There you go.
So yeah, you could keep
Ask
a
them
channel
if they like
open.
their job or what kind of a day they're having.
Yeah, that's a neat idea. We'll have to look into doing that.
There you go.
Along the lines of shipping phones, if you're worried about causing interference on a plane, you could possibly use an accelerometer and just a very light power draw circuit that could turn off everything else if the speed ever crossed the threshold. So as soon as you're on the tarmac and coming up to speed, you can turn off all of the other circuitry and wait till you see the deceleration and turn it all back on.
Right on. That's a very good idea. Thank you. So, well, remember, somebody mentioned it's expensive. I have access to surplus. I have access to surplus aviation parts. Go ahead.
This isn't so much postal hacking, but it's more of just an interesting thing of what could go on with the mail. There's a certain company that sells ant farms, but when you buy the farm, you don't buy the actual ants. You get a card.
Yes.
You have to mail your address in.
Yes, ants and bees are one of the live animals you can send to the mail.
Right. So you get a card. You get to send the mail anywhere. But they don't check to see who sent it. You can send it anyone you want.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, his comment was if you want to play a prank on somebody, not necessarily the post office, get one of those ant farm kits, and inside there's a postcard that you write off to the company, and they'll mail you the ants. But they don't necessarily know that that you're the one that bought it, so you can have them send ants to whoever you want. Go for it.
So on the note of getting a package in the post office for a year, have you ever seen Back to the Future?
Yes, I have.
You know what I'm getting at? Will they do something like that?
Wow, the post office is not really in the business of holding mail. I'm not sure how we would send something that far. I mean, that was done with Western Union, which is a private courier service. The closest thing we've done with that is as they were evacuating New Orleans for Katrina, I sent some people letters, and because I wanted to see what kind of crazy return stamp I would get on it or how long it would get delayed. And what happened was that everybody got back to their homes, and they said, I have no power, my sewer is backed up, I've got 6 inches of water in my house, and there's no gas, but I have a letter from you. So they really do work hard. So thanks for the question.
In terms of shutting the phone off when you're doing airmail, you could, as you said, you have extra airplane parts. You can maybe try doing some sort of an altimeter thing. So I don't know how that would work.
The altimeter wouldn't work very well during takeoff because you're already at ground level. We've looked at maybe like the intensity of noise because it's very noisy down there. But yeah, an altimeter wouldn't work, especially when you consider like the cruise altitude of my airplane is the field altitude of Denver.
And
so.
And then if you could, well, another way to do it is if you could get GPS. If GPS would be working in the plane, GPS will give you a rough altitude reading.
Yeah, we're still coming back to altitude.
Yeah, well,
not knowing our altitude on the ground.
Though.
Yeah.
You could monitor it.
Yeah, your initial